Gunshots tore through a quiet Birmingham street, ripping apart the afternoon and sending neighbors screaming. A man fell to the pavement, blood soaking the concrete, as chaos erupted around him. This was no random act. This was a calculated, cold-blooded execution. The victim, 33-year-old Anthony Sargeant, was a father of 8 children, a family man whose life ended in a single, violent moment. Welcome to Britain's Dark Files, the channel that exposes the darkest, untold crimes across the UK. Today, we uncover a murder that shocked Birmingham, a story of betrayal, revenge, and ruthless gangland violence. If you want to follow this story from the streets to the courtroom, hit subscribe now to stay with us through every chilling detail. Anthony had lived a life walking a dangerous line. He had influence in Birmingham's criminal underworld, but with power came enemies. Threats had followed him for years, whispers of revenge and grudges that festered in the city's shadows. That afternoon, those threats became horrifyingly real. The streets erupted in panic as Anthony was struck down, leaving his family and the community in disbelief. Even in the heart of a city no stranger to violence, the scene was shocking. Cars screeched, sirens wailed, and neighbors scrambled to safety. Anthony's reputation as a man both feared and respected could not save him from the deadly plan executed in broad daylight. Every detail of the attack had been orchestrated, a warning that in Birmingham streets, betrayal and vengeance can come from any direction, even from those you think you can trust. This was a man taken in an instant, leaving behind a grieving family and a city forced to confront the merciless reality of gangland execution. In the days leading up to the murder, Birmingham streets were charged with tension. Rival gangs watched, plotted, and waited for the perfect moment to strike. Anthony Sargeant moved cautiously, aware that threats lurked in every shadow, yet he could not anticipate the full scope of the danger closing in. Every meeting, every errand, every step outside carried the weight of potential death. Anthony's life was a precarious balance between power and peril. His influence in the criminal underworld earned him respect, but it also earned him enemies. Grudges had festered for years, whispers of betrayal spreading through the streets, until finally, the city's simmering tensions reached a breaking point. Loyalties could shift in a heartbeat, friends could become foes, and a single misstep could be fatal. Unbeknownst to Anthony, the hit had been meticulously planned. The killers had studied his routine, scouted the streets, and prepared for every possible scenario. Vehicles were positioned, escape routes mapped, and timing rehearsed. Every detail had been considered to ensure that the execution would be swift, precise, and untraceable, at least for a moment. Even those closest to Anthony were not beyond suspicion. Hidden betrayals had crept into his inner circle, feeding the killers the information they needed to strike. Friends, associates, and familiar faces had unknowingly, or willingly, become part of the trap that would soon snap shut. As the tension mounted, Birmingham itself seemed to hold its breath. The city, unaware of the violent plan unfolding, carried on with a fragile sense of normalcy. And yet, the storm was already in motion, waiting for the moment when all caution would be meaningless. The day of the hit arrived, ordinary on the surface, but beneath it, danger waited patiently. Anthony Sargeant stepped onto the street, unaware that 2 stolen vehicles slid into position around him. Shadows moved with lethal purpose. Every detail of the ambush had been planned, timing, positioning, and escape routes meticulously calculated. Then it happened. Gunfire shattered the calm, echoing through the residential streets. Anthony fell to the pavement, the life of a father of 8 stolen in seconds. Neighbors screamed, doors slammed shut, and the quiet of Birmingham was replaced by chaos and fear. The attack was executed with cold precision. The shooters moved like shadows, disappearing almost as quickly as they had arrived, leaving only destruction behind. Witnesses later described 2 men, armed and determined, carrying out the hit with terrifying efficiency. Cars had been strategically placed, every exit accounted for, every passerby momentarily frozen in shock. It was a message: power, control, and dominance declared in a violent, public statement. The city would soon realize that this was not just a murder, it was a warning. Anthony's enemies had acted without hesitation, striking at the precise moment he was most vulnerable. Even his reputation, his street influence, and his connections could not protect him from the betrayal and planning that had surrounded him. The attack was calculated, ruthless, and efficient, leaving detectives with only fragments of evidence to piece together. The streets of Birmingham had become a stage for gangland violence, a scene of horror that would be dissected by investigators, whispered about by the community, and remembered as one of the most shocking executions in the city's recent history. Detectives arrived on the scene quickly, but the brutal precision of the hit made their work far from simple. CCTV footage, mobile phone records, and witness testimonies slowly began to reveal the scope of the plan. What had seemed like a random attack was, in reality, a meticulously orchestrated execution, carried out by individuals who knew exactly what they were doing. As investigators dug deeper, the shocking truth began to emerge. Among the killers were Michael Goodwin and his own brother, Connor Goodwin, along with Keenan Anderson and Leon Riley. The involvement of siblings in such a cold-blooded murder stunned detectives and the wider community alike. The execution was not only ruthless but also a betrayal of unimaginable proportions, illustrating how even family ties could be twisted in the pursuit of gangland power. Every piece of evidence revealed another layer of deception. Friends and associates who Anthony had trusted had fed information to the killers, quietly aiding the planning of the ambush. Hidden alliances, secret meetings, and unspoken grudges all pointed to a web of betrayal that extended far beyond the immediate circle of suspects. Detectives realized they were confronting not just a murder, but a network of deception, revenge, and violence that had been brewing for years. The investigation moved quickly, but the city itself seemed to hold its breath as the pieces fell into place. Every new lead pulled detectives closer to the killers and the shocking betrayals behind the attack. If this story has you hooked and you want to see how justice was finally served, hit subscribe now. The revelations ahead are darker than the streets themselves. As investigators worked tirelessly, the web of crime, betrayal, and calculated violence began to unravel, setting the stage for the final chapter and the courtroom showdown that would follow. Justice was finally served, but the impact of Anthony Sargeant's murder reverberated across Birmingham. The investigation led to the arrest and conviction of all four killers: Michael Goodwin, his brother Connor Goodwin, Keenan Anderson, and Leon Riley. The court found them jointly responsible for the execution-style killing, with minimum prison terms ranging from 28 to 32 years. The involvement of the Goodwin brothers added a shocking layer of betrayal, showing how deeply loyalty could be twisted in the world of gangland violence. During the trial, harrowing details emerged about the meticulous planning of the hit. Evidence showed stolen vehicles, timed movements, and coordination that left no room for error. The jury heard testimonies about the attacker's ruthlessness and cold calculation. Even though it remains unclear which of the four fired the fatal shot, the court held all of them equally accountable, underscoring the collective nature of the crime. Anthony's family was left to cope with a tragedy no parent should face. His 8 children grew up without their father, and the community struggled to reconcile the violence that had erupted on an ordinary street. Birmingham's gang dynamics shifted, with old alliances fractured and rivalries exposed, forcing the city to confront the ruthless reality of organized street violence. If this story gripped you from start to finish, like, comment, and share this video. Britain's Dark Files will continue uncovering the hidden truths of the UK's darkest crimes. The life of Anthony Sargeant, his family, and the brutal murder that ended him remain a chilling reminder that in Birmingham streets, power, fear, and betrayal can turn deadly in an instant. The murder, the investigation, and the trial exposed not only the cruelty of gangland revenge but also the devastating human cost that lingers long after the violence ends.